Hello, my name is Robert Rutledge. Today we're going to be doing an Afrobeats drum tutorial in Ableton Live. I'm going to start off by doing a short kind of introduction, kind of a history lesson of how Afrobeats came to be. So feel free to skip ahead, I'll leave chapter markers, but let's just jump right in. Alright, so I do think it's important to make the differentiation between Afrobeats and Afrobeat. They're two different genres. So Fela Kuti was a Nigerian musician. He traveled from his home country of Nigeria to the United States in the late 1960s. And then when he traveled back to Nigeria in the early 1970s, he kind of took this James Brown soul sound with him and he combined it with the traditional music going on in Nigeria, and this gave birth to Afrobeat. Once Fela Kuti died, it could be tempting to say that Afrobeat died along with him, but I don't think that was really the case. I think Afrobeat is still alive and well today. We still have groups like Kokoroko absolutely killing it. But anyways, I think Afrobeats is not necessarily a continuation of Afrobeat as it is a deviation. So I found this article in the HuffPost, I think it was from about 2015. This journalist Robin Sher, I'll let you read it, but he calls it a diaspora spread across continents. And that's kind of an interesting way of putting it. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a diaspora in and of itself. Maybe the ancient Greek definition, but the modern definition, a group of people who live outside the area in which they had lived for a long time or in which their ancestors lived. Diaspora is kind of a context-heavy word, I'd say. There's African diaspora, Jewish diaspora, there's even Puerto Rican diaspora. Okay, so let's go back to Fela Kuti. As I was saying before, I think it's tempting to kind of say, well, he died at 1997, and that's where kind of Afrobeat descended and Afrobeats was kind of hitting the scene for the first time. It is interesting to consider that around this time, the turn of the century, is when computers really started playing an important role in how people make music. This might be a sweeping generalization. Afrobeat without the S is played by live musicians, and Afrobeats is made with computers. I think with Afrobeats, it's not as easy to pinpoint it to an exact geographical location or a person who pioneered it like Fela Kuti did for Afrobeat. But I want to talk a little bit about African diaspora. We have this chart. I think this is over the course of from like the 1500s to the early 1800s. So a time period of at least 300 years, I'd say. Just this very ugly thing called the slave trade. If you clicked on this video, there's a good chance your ancestors are part of these numbers. Part of the reason this was such a mind-blowing graphic for me, and part of the reason why I chose to share it, was look at how many slaves, how many African people made it to the Caribbean as opposed to the United States. And in particular, Jamaica and Cuba. What happened in the United States is obviously there's a lot more land, so a lot of more people were born into slavery and the reproduction, as opposed to in the Caribbean where there's not a lot of land. And kind of the connection I've been making, it almost seems like Afrobeats is as much of a Caribbean genre as it is an African genre. Alright, so history lesson over. Let's talk about our sound palette. I have all the instruments I want to use over here. These are empty, but they all have a drum rack in them. I'm just hoping this will be kind of a more efficient way of working than directly plugging the wave files into the track, because then it gets a little complicated and you can't do a hot swap. I'd say the most important element of our sound palette would be the rim knocks. So a rim knock is when you have your drumstick here, you have the tip of the drumstick kind of laying against the head, and you do this to make it hit the rim. So it makes a very distinct noise that sounds a little bit like, put that into our drum rack down here. And then I'd say the next most important would be the rim click, or just the rim, but I call it the rim click to differentiate. This is just the rim of the drum, so it sounds like this. You can also use like a kind of metallic noise, something like that, maybe pitch it up. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it simple and use the traditional one. So we got that taken care of. Next, we got the congas, or the congas as gringos call it. We have a high conga and a low conga. I know the low conga is called the tumbao, or the tumba, I guess. It sounds like this. And then the high conga, I'm really not sure what it's called, but it sounds like this. So you want to make sure they sound good together. I don't know if it's necessary to go as far as making sure as they're in the key of the song. I think that might be overkill, but you do want to make sure they sound good together. Hi-hat, you want a crisp sounding hi-hat. Moving right along, we got our shaker. This is kind of optional, but I think it does sound good. You definitely want a more staccato shaker, and that's just to kind of give it some more groove, I'd say. And last but not least, or maybe least, I don't know, the kick. And you want more of a subtle kick. This isn't like an EDM kick. This is more of a like soft kick, I'd say. So something like that. Okay, so we got our sound palette taken care of now. If you've made it this far into the video, I hope you've been enjoying it. Please consider subscribing. That would really help me out. Thank you, and here's the rest of the video. So let's just jump right into the programming. So I recorded real quick just a guitar part from a pretty popular song, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want copyright takedown notice, but you'll probably recognize it. That's just to kind of have a point of reference for our beat. So let's start with these rim knocks. This is a clave pattern. So this is like an Afro-Cuban type pattern, right? And this goes back to the history lesson. So let's go in here, and literally all it is, and again, you know, there's variations of course, but for our purposes, just keep things simple. Like that, okay. So that's literally all it is. You can copy and paste that pretty much throughout the whole thing. Duplicate, Control D. Next off, we got our rim clicks. Kind of what I've heard from listening to so much Afrobeats is that it kind of fills in the space here on beat 3. So that's all we're gonna do for now. Maybe we can make it a little bit more complex a little later on, right here. Yep, that's right, okay. Maybe even pitch that up a little bit. Like that maybe. And then we can do a like a 16th note, I think. Yeah, I think that sounds good. So we're just kind of filling in that gap there, and we can just do a Control D for this. And let's just move right along. Congas, we want this to be on the offbeats. So this almost sounds Jamaican. This is almost like a reggae type of deal because it's literally just the offbeats. And we're going high, low, high, low. So, oh, I guess that's what I want. Oops, that wasn't what I want. Okay, so yeah, I think that ended up working out. Control D this. There we go. So it sounds like this now. No, that is not what we want. So I think I need to do half time or double time or whatever. Maybe. Oh, gee. There we go. No. That sounded kind of funny. Okay, so do the same thing here. Do divide by 2, and then this is just gonna get scooted over. And then maybe just to get some variation, we can do like a double beat every 2 measures, maybe. And I think what's important for the congas, and maybe I didn't really do a good job of demonstrating this, but I like to actually imagine someone playing the congas. So for example, these 2 hits, I have them at the same velocity, because if you think about it, if you're going to be hitting the conga with your 2 hands, it's likely going to be maybe not the exact same velocity, but pretty close. Let's go to hi-hat. I kind of take more of a hip hop or trap approach to this, you know, to make it not so monotonous. Maybe let's just have the hi-hats come in maybe in the second half, and then if we want to change that later on, we can change that later on. And I want to do like a roll type of deal. I'm going to do like a 30-second note type roll. We can do a ramp. I'd say 50, just to give that a nice entrance. And I'm gonna do like a 16th note type of deal. So maybe something like that. Yeah, I'm digging that. And then we can repeat this right here, right? You don't want it to be too repetitive, but you don't want it to be too crazy either. You can even like pitch bend those if you really wanted to, but let's just move on. So now we got the shaker. Shake, shake, shake it up. Okay, so for the shaker, real important, I'd set it to a 16th note triplet grid, and you'll see why in a second. And this is gonna be on the offbeats. And you want this triplet kind of skip beat to be a little louder than the rest. Okay, so I think that should be good. This is making it kind of swing. We could do the whole thing as that. So put that there. Put that there. So that's just a real simple shaker part. Feel free to get creative, but I'm just gonna move on to the kick. Again, this is gonna be a real subtle kick drum, but it definitely gives it some oomph. So let's go here, and we can do just quarter notes, right? But I'm gonna save the quarter notes for the very last 16 bar phrase, or 8 bar phrase, excuse me. Is that 4? I guess that's 4 bars. Here, we're gonna do kind of like a heartbeat type of deal. So, duh, duh, duh. So there you have it, folks. I'm gonna play it from the beginning. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.